Alright guys, TouchCoder back again today. Haven't enjoyed your day so far. Once again, I believe this is going to be the first ever Tribble upload in the history of this channel, but it certainly comes at a good time. Dashy has been confirmed to be joining the Chicago Huntsmen, a change which has been rumoured now for a couple of weeks. Certainly makes sense. We're going to look into this in a little bit more detail today than we have been discussing it in the past. A lot of implications really from this change. The rest of the league, of course, what that is potentially going to look like. Huntsmen being the first team to officially confirm their rosters, and I imagine we will get some in the next few hours, the next few days to talk about also on this channel. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss any of those updates. Like if you enjoyed the video as well, we're going to be breaking down this roster in some detail today. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Will this work once again? Because last time that Dashy and Scump, that kind of duo, teamed up in the Black Ops 4 days, it worked great early on and then kind of fell apart towards the end of the season. This time, can it work the second time around? Of course, Dashy, no doubt, one of the most talented players in the entire league. If you can get him firing on all cylinders, Huntsmen, well, they're already a contender, of course, but they could certainly be a championship winning roster this season. I no doubt that they will definitely be competing for them and probably winning a couple of championships here or there. But will they be a dominant roster given how competitive the league is going to be next season? That remains to be seen. Let's hop into things then. Brustini did tweet out this as well, like, you know, of course, formerly on the Huntsmen. Ever feel like you get put in the worst situations way too often? I live for it at this point. Don't need anybody, don't need nobody, a double negative, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it remains to be seen where exactly Brustini will go. But one of the replacements to that team is going to be Dashy, and FaZe also tweet this out saying contract is official, potentially saying that they've finally got Arcetes to be signing for that team as well, who is rumoured to be going over there. Of course, Arcetes and Brustini, formerly on the Huntsmen, to be replaced by none other than Dashy, Brandon Dashy Hotel. Huntsmen tweeted this out a little bit before with the kind of Batman symbol, like they call Dashy Bruce, his name's Brandon, but you know, his voice like one time sounded really deep, and I think Saints thought he sounded like Bruce Wayne being Batman, so he's kind of become like a Batman kind of figure. This was really well edited, and I was like, okay, damn, like, come on, Huntsmen, stop teasing us. When are you actually going to officially announce this? They do it about an hour or so later. Welcome back at Dashy, time to hunt. So Dashy officially joins the team. The squad is going to be Scump, Formal, Dashy, and Dylan Envoy on the squad. So I definitely like it. It definitely makes a lot of sense. However, there are some potential downsides to this roster as we will look at. There was a lot of discussion over the last couple of weeks with Priester in free agency saying, okay, maybe you get Priester in, definitely a more versatile player potentially than Dashy. Dashy has certainly talked about how he's happy running the flex. He can run the flex to a great degree. He's been talking about, because of course Formal is going to be your main assault rifle, no doubt about that. Envoy and Scump are going to be your SMGs, and Dashy is going to have to kind of fill the gaps on that team. Into a tryout game, that's probably more reasonable, right, than an Infinity Ward game, because typically in a tryout game we tend to see a couple of assault rifles on the map. You tend to have a main AR and then either, you know, an ICR and a Maddox or whatever has happened to be in the past. Usually there's a couple of ARs on the map, so Dashy should be comfortable in this role, and Huntsmen are probably looking for that. But definitely if we do get to a point where there is a 3 SMG meta on some maps or some game modes, Dashy is going to have to use the SMG, which definitely is more risky, I suppose, because when he was put into that role at times this season on OGLA, as we will look at, it didn't necessarily work out so well. There's also been the discussion about work ethic, right? Like, we've heard numerous things from Slasher and Kenny, of course, saying that Dashy was given opportunity after opportunity. They built around him on the OpTic Gaming Los Angeles squad this season, but still, like, he wasn't putting in the work, he wasn't putting in the practice, and wanted to join with Scump and Co over at the Huntsmen from right at the beginning of the season. That's certainly understandable given the success they had in the Black Ops 4 days, and all the transition into franchising kind of messed up that, and I imagine Chicago have been looking to try and get Dashy back for a while now, given their team kind of fell off, well, in part with the gunless stuff, and they got Brustini, and then, you know, coming into the off-season, I imagine Dashy certainly wanted to come back, and Scump probably thought, we need to up the level of talent on this team if we are going to compete with some of the other best rosters in the game in the 4v4 environment. Especially, of course, that Atlanta FaZe squad that has been rumoured right now, Simp, Abizi, Celium, and Arcetes. You're definitely going to need to step up your slaying power, I suppose, in a 4v4 environment to match that, and Dashy certainly has that capability, at least on paper. So Dashy tweets out this, I am home, talking about, you know, green wall, all this kind of stuff, hashtag Huntsman, and this really was the season he has had over the last few seasons. Played on Complexity, played on E6 in the World War II days, joins the OpTic Gaming squad at the start of Black Ops 4, immediately wins the championship in Las Vegas, undoubtedly the best player at this event. Arcetes was also fantastic, but look at this right here from CODstats.gg. Dashy topping the scoreboards, 1.56 adjusted KD. This is like your KD taking into account your actual KD, but also weighting it towards search and destroy. So if your search and destroy gameplay is great, your adjusted KD will be even higher than your normal KD. I mean, he had a 1.44 over the course of the tournament with a 1.56 adjusted KD over 28 maps. That is absolutely remarkable. Dashy proved already this event why he is one of the scariest players in the entire game when he is performing on all cylinders. And will that happen again in the Huntsmen? It's definitely possible. It's definitely going to be a more comfortable environment for him, but there are certainly some questions to be had around this team. If we do get a 3 SMG meta, how well can he potentially perform in that environment? Maybe not so great as we've seen him do with the AR in the past, and going into the OpTic Gaming Los Angeles team this season, there was definitely discussions from Slasher especially that, Dashy wanted to run the main assault rifle and wasn't enabled to do that, right? And here he's definitely going to be running the flex on this team. Just to explain the roles real quick, you tend to have in these games now, especially in 4v4, 2 SMGs, probably an entry SMG and then kind of a more support SMG. Envoy will probably be the entry SMG, Scump just behind him. Then you've got your flex player who will use a main assault rifle or use an assault rifle or an SMG depending on the map and depending on the situation that it's in. Often they'll be the one, like let's say there's a certain hill rotation in hardpoints and one of the hardpoints is more preferable for 2 assault rifles, one of them is more preferable for 3 SMGs. They tend to be the player that switches between them on the fly. And then you've got Formal, who is certainly going to be your main assault rifle, one of the best main assault rifles in Call of Duty history. So if they can get Dashy's top level here, I have no doubt this team will be one of the best teams in the entire game. The question mark is, will the consistency be there in terms of the practice, right? And this clip just came out from Scump on stream, him talking about it. Thanks to James for pointing this out to me and clipping this at the time. Just wanted to share a quick clip of him saying that, Scump saying that he's going to actually keep these guys in check this year, and Scump and Envoy are going to keep, Dashy and Formal in check, making sure they're up on time for scrims, all this kind of stuff which we've heard issues about from the OGLA squad with Dashy this season, and also discussions earlier this season from the Huntsmen saying that, Formal wasn't always turning up to practice on time as well. So I'll just share that clip.
In before the... Bruce is gonna be late for practice. I can't believe that you picked up such an unreliable flex player. Why the fuck didn't you go with someone else, Seth? God damn it, you stupid redhead. Bruce is awake, let's go. 2:15 p.m., let's go, baby. Don't worry, I'm keeping them in check this year, all right? Me and Dylan Envoy are keeping the 2 idiots in check. You got my word.
So another major discussion here really is around exactly how the in-game leadership looks on this squad. Because you've got Scump, you've got Formal, you've got Envoy. A lot of people have been talking about that, yes, okay, you get Dylan Envoy as your kind of in-game leader. He was doing a fair bit of the shot calling in Search and Destroy. A lot of people talked about last season on the Huntsmen, and maybe that could work, right? But then again, you look at typical teams in Call of Duty, the IGLs, the in-game leadership type player that tends to call the shots in Search and Destroy and kind of boss around the players on the team as to where they want them to be placed. Typically, they tend to be a main assault rifle, and the main assault rifle really is in the best position to do an in-game leadership role because the SMGs are constantly in gunfights, constantly sprinting, constantly in engagements. It's very difficult in that role to actually do a good job at in-game leading, and maybe Envoy will do that perfectly well because that is what a lot of people have been talking about here. However, as an assault rifle, it's definitely easier to play that role because typically you're more at the back. You can kind of direct your SMGs around the map as to what you want them to pick up, like what lanes you want them to cover, which areas you want them to push out, so you can set up in a good power position, I suppose, with your main assault rifle in hand. That's typically how these teams work. So with Formal as your main AR, you don't necessarily have a great in-game leadership candidate, apart from Envoy as we've been talking about. And a lot of these other teams definitely have that kind of IGL figure, especially you look at the Dallas Empire team that won the World Championship with Crimsix and Clayster, both kind of filling that role from different times at size. Like Clayster would kind of be the hype guy. Crimsix might be the more like down-to-earth kind of like between rounds, like saying a little tidbit of information here and there to help them over the line, I suppose. They fill that role pretty nicely. Does Huntsman necessarily have that player on the team? It's not necessarily, well, I suppose it is yet to be seen. So this team is great on paper, right? Don't get me wrong. Scump and Envoy are gotta be one of the most deadly SMG duos in the entire game. Scump's always fantastic. Envoy has certainly proven his worth over the last couple of seasons as well. Formerly in the main assault rifle role has been somewhat underwhelming, I suppose, over the last couple of seasons from what we have typically seen from him, especially back in the day when he was dropping 1.4s or whatever at the Infinite Warfare Champs and he won the MVP at that event. Since then, it's been somewhat underwhelming. Not necessarily underwhelming by like main assault rifle standards. He's still probably a top 5 AR in the game, but compared to some other guys, he's not necessarily quite there as he was. If he can get back to that kind of level, this team already is disgusting. And then you've got Dashy as your fourth, right? And if you do get a favorable meta for this team, and Dashy's comfortable in the squad and he's practicing and all this kind of stuff comes well for these guys, this could be an unbelievably deadly team. Of course, there is no doubt about that. The way I see this going, though, is maybe not so ideal for the Huntsmen. I think, honestly, we may see a similar trajectory trajectory for this team than we traditionally see in Call of Duty with squads like the Huntsmen, where they probably start off the year very, very strong. I would not be surprised if they win an event in February or March, right at the start of the year. Maybe they win 2 events, but in terms of maintaining that throughout the year, I'm not sure it's necessarily going to be there. The Huntsmen definitely prioritize content over the other factors, and I'm sure Hector's decision really bringing Dashy back was partly in terms of the content, because the fans love him, and also he gets on very well with the guys on the team, and there's going to be a lot of content potential that comes out as a result of that. The question is, in the long run, will this team be able to keep it together? Do they have a coach that's going to keep traps on these guys? We had so much discussion from the Dallas Empire this season that Crimsix and Clayster and Rambo Ray were constantly getting these guys on, and they put more work in, they put more hard work in to the game than any other team in the entire game. Do the Huntsmen have that work ethic a few months into the game when Champs is on the horizon, there's content to be made and there's all sorts of other stuff to be done, and has Dashy necessarily proved himself to have that work ethic in the past? Not necessarily, right? So they probably need a kind of talisman to get them in the gear, right? And well, Scump and Envoy saying that he will do that in that clip I just shared, but well, we'll just have to see how things develop. So my conclusion really is this team on paper is absolutely spectacular and could be phenomenal at a number of events. I would not be surprised if they win 1, 2 events this season, maybe even more than that. But in terms of long-term trajectory, I'm not sure this team will necessarily be able to maintain that high level of performance I expect them to come into the year with, in a similar way really to what Huntsmen have done this season long and in the past with the OpTic gaming squads. And if they come top 3 at Champs again, would I be incredibly surprised? Probably not. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below though. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.